Good evening, friends. This is Barb Pask, here to paint for you again. Before we get started, I wanted to talk just a couple minutes. I'm doing a still life again tonight. I guess you've figured out by now how much I enjoy painting from life. A couple things I was just going to show you quick before we started. I mentioned last week I had read a book on Van Gogh that I thought was really interesting, and I was going to show it to you. This is it. Van Gogh, The Life, but look at the size of it. It is a huge book. It's a commitment. As I mentioned, I've loaned it to a few other friends, and it's just too much book for them, and they can't get into it. I'm not going to lie, I fast forwarded through sections of it, but very interesting if you're interested in Van Gogh. I would recommend it. Like I said, change my view on some things about him. One other book I was going to show you. I recently bought Alla Prima by Richard Smith. I believe there's two Alla Primas. I think this is the first. In my opinion, Richard Smith is one of the great living artists of our day. If you don't know who he is, I recommend you check him out. Alla Prima is everything I know about painting, he says. Recommended reading. Anyway, on the introduction, which I thought was interesting, he prefers to work from life, and he calls it direct painting throughout the book. And direct painting is also called alla prima, which means painting from life, and usually in one session, like wet into wet. And he says, I believe it to be the ultimate in representational art because it is about real experience and demands the highest level of skill. For myself, I was really pleased to read that he knew, that he feels that way. I, as you know, like to paint from life, and I typically try to complete it in one session. I think it's just the best thing you can do for yourself. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. A great exercise. So anyway, I'll show you what I'm doing. Swing you around and show you. This is what I'm going to do tonight. I tried to set up a dramatic still life. I had fun doing this. I have a black screen, as you can see, behind it, and opened the box so it would be black in the back. The reason I didn't use the screen is I wanted to make the space tighter and darker. I chose, as you can see, there's a copper pot and a little copper teapot, and I hit the front of the setup with light. Tip it down a little bit, maybe you can see a little bit better. Because I wanted a dramatic setup. So my focal point, which that melon is more of an orange color in real life, but that melon is my focal point for a few reasons. Obviously, it's lit with strong light. Another is the color of it. There you can tell a little bit better. Typical cantaloupe color, orange, and I put it on a blue plate on purpose. As blue is a complement to orange, so that should really stand out. So, I have to really consider what I see in there. I want to paint what I see. I'll have to keep the values very close, like on the handle, and then the copper will be fun to hit the highlights. I can see inside the copper pot from here where I am. I'm seeing it from a little, maybe approximately there. I do want to get some of the front of the tablecloth too. Created some folds, so I'm working on an 8 by 10. And another hard panel, which I put couple coats of gesso and created some texture. I don't think I'm going to put a wash on it tonight. I think I'm going to just start out and do a sketch. Like with the boots last time, this would be a good one to put a wash on the canvas, maybe a burnt sienna, and go in and wipe out, which, I could do it that way. And wipe out where the bright lights are, keep that really clean, but, I always try to come up with a plan, but it doesn't always work that way. So, all right, let's look at this through my view catcher, like I always do. Try to set up my composition. I'm obviously going horizontal because the setup is that way. Like I said, I want to see some of that draped fabric down in here, so I don't want to go any lower than that. And I like this dark background. All right, let's think where things land here. When you paint outside and the sunlight's hitting things, that's really fun, you know, that dramatic lighting. Got a few new subscribers. I want to welcome you. I always ask like and subscribe if you haven't, please consider that. And I'll have a link to my website in the description box. I put 2 pieces of melon on the plate. We'll see how that ends up looking. I'm not real sure at this point. All right, I'm looking where the melon goes across. Yeah, I started out with 1 piece, and I thought, well, maybe 2 would be more interesting, but sometimes as you get going on things, you'll find out, you know, I make changes. I try not to do that. Often when you're painting, things just look so bad, it's just hard to keep pushing forward. I don't know if you feel that way if you paint. Looking where the plate hits the cantaloupe. And look over here where the teapot hits. Let's see where the handle hits in relation. Maybe a little higher. I have done, like I say, I have a lot of DVDs, and I have one of C.W. Mundy's where he starts off with a very dark canvas, just layers and lots of paint, and into that dark background, then he'll paint like copper and stuff without defining too much of it. So I've tried that after I watched his video. You know, you got to try everything you see, and I tried that. And then there's a shadow over here. We may actually kind of suggest the box. Okay, let me look at things closer before I get going here. The handle's probably more up there. Now I'm looking at the negative space inside this hole here. And again, this is something you want symmetrical, so go ahead and draw the lid that way. That's the spout. Even though I'm not going to, hopefully not, explain everything back in here, I just want to get it right before I start. Adjusting the size of this stuff. Okay. Might be enough to get going. I think we'll start with our focal point with some nice clean paint and lay that in first. Like I said, it's cantaloupe, so obviously an orange color. So let's just start with an orange. I mean, that's always the place to start. Just some Cad Red Light and some Cad Yellow Medium, and I'm making an orange, and let's just judge that now. So you ask yourself, is it too light? Is it too dark? Too warm, too cool? Those are the things you always ask yourself. I'm going to put a little white in it, which lightens and cools it some. The dark is just, the top is just a tiny bit darker than the front face of it. All right, let's get a brush. I'm working in water mixable oils. If you're new to me and don't know that, water mixable oils I use mostly Cobra, which I feel is a quality brand. I have some Duo also. And the Cobra, here's a tube of those. I order them from Dick Blick. If you're going to try the water mixable oils, I recommend you use a quality brand. They are not all the same. But the good ones, to me, work like oils and dry like oils, but water cleanup. Okay, we're going to lay in some color, and we may, come back with a palette knife and do this much heavier. Now, does that look orange to you? Okay. And the top, as I mentioned, is a bit darker. Okay, and obviously the flesh part is green, a fairly saturated green. So I start with ultramarine blue and Cad Yellow Medium, and I just make a green. Just a bright, pure green, and we take a look at that then. And actually that's not too bad. But I'm going to put just a touch of white in it. When I mix all my own greens. Nothing wrong with tube greens, but I don't use them. And I tend not to use a pure saturated green too often. I paint outside a lot, do a lot of landscapes, and I tend to gray them a little bit. I usually put a little red in the green, the complement, because typically those pure greens are just too much. And up here I can see some of the outside flesh of it. And I lighten it up a little bit. And again, this is really early on, so we'll be adjusting things. And it's hard, honestly, it's hard to judge one color against, if you have it correct color and value-wise, until you get something to judge it against and get a lot more information in here. Okay, we'll go ahead and paint in the flesh of this, which is, I'm looking at it, it's kind of a gray, kind of yellow. It's an unusual color. Let's take some of the green and we'll lighten it. I tend to work into the puddles that I have already, shift them to what I need. I'm going to put some Indian yellow in it. And we're going to put a little red in it because it is kind of a gray color. Let's see what that looks like. I think it needs to be warmer. And let's even go a little lighter. I said this is early in the game and I'm not real worried about everything being too perfect at this point. And I gotta be honest, I don't even know if I'll like this piece in there as I go along. We shall see. When I laid it there, it seemed interesting, but I know some people spend an enormous amount of time setting up still lifes. Well, that's your composition. If your composition is no good, your painting's not going to be any good in my opinion. So it is a big deal. Like I said, and there's a little bit, let's darken it a tiny bit. I can see some of that flesh here too, which I mixed into the green and it doesn't look anything like it, does it? Okay, more like that. Let's go ahead and do the blue plate. Ultramarine. I'm going to take some transparent red. Put some of that in it. Trying to get it fairly dark for the shadows under the plate. I'm sorry, under the melon. And like I say, I'll probably be doing all this again, but I'll go ahead and put some of this under here for the shadow of the plate. All right. Looking at the blue plate, this is really the brightest place on the plate. That's hard to say. Okay. Back into my ultramarine and put a little white in there. Okay, let's look at where it's hitting the cantaloupe. Fairly high about there. I've said it before, but it's all about observation and painting what you see. Not always easy, but the right color and the right value in the right place, right? It's so easy, right? Not at all. But isn't it fun? I just love it. That may be too dark, but we'll see. It's a pretty saturated blue color. This is in the lips, obviously, and they can be very tricky. I've got another one here. And again, I don't know if I'll like that, if that will even make sense. You know, there's little dots of color through that. You know, at this point I'm not sure I'll like it, because I actually think it might just be confusing to the viewer. Yeah, I'm rethinking that. You know, the back of it's not very exciting. Like I said, there's like little dots of green color through it. You know, I don't know if that will help explain it. Don't know. It's too soon to decide, I think. We're just going to have to move on. Okay. Now I've got 2 copper containers behind there. This one's kind of cool because it is catching some highlights. It's a lot lighter even though it's back in there further. This one's pretty dark with a very dull highlight on it. So let's play around and mix up something for, maybe we'll just paint in the, the little dark guy first. So I'm thinking it needs to be fairly dark in value. I'm taking my orange and throwing it together with the ultramarine, which is making, you know, more of a green color. So I'm going to warm it up. And you won't really know if I've got this right until I paint in the background. Making me feel like I might want to even paint in the background first. Let's get some of that on there. It's all problem solving. Figuring out as you go, you know, what's next and what do you need to change. So what I'm going to do, take a bigger brush, and I'm going to get some of this dark in the background. I think it might help us. Got a wild hair on my brush there, see it? Because I paint so often that I rinse them off and I stick them in a Ziploc bag frequently. So if something has bent it out, if I can't get it back in, I'll have to clip it off. So what we're going to do is, again, just get this dark back in here. Again, this might help us judge value. My understanding was when Bob Ross used to paint on TV, he would do a painting before and a painting, of course, during the show, the same thing, and then I think a painting afterwards too. So he really did a test run before he started. The family, I understand, still owns all those too. I think he was a very nice man, and he got a lot of people painting. He loved animals, so he had to be a good guy. I wonder how well his paintings have held up, because you're supposed to paint thin to thick, and he would, a lot of times use very thin paint on top. Remember, he'd talk about thinning it down to get it to stick, and I just wonder how they've held up over the years. This is kind of a fun way to do it. I say I could have covered the whole canvas with a burnt sienna or something and just wiped out too. That would have been another way. The reason I didn't put it here is there's a lighter color there that I may introduce. So I haven't decided. I'll bring that down to the handle. Okay, now let's start working on this guy. I got to keep it dark enough. This would be a good place for some lost edges even, I got to keep it, and I'll be going over this again. It's obviously too thin, so got to keep it dark enough in value. I'm going to try to squint a lot. Like this is completely lost edge as I look into there. Which I like. I can see this side a little bit more, so we'll lighten that side a little bit. And the handle stands out a lot more for some reason. I'm just playing around with muddy warm color right now. And the handle I can see a bit better. Keep that pretty dark. And I've overlapped the that onto that, so been busy doing pet commissions, which I mentioned last time about painting those. I really cannot paint those online because they're gifts, so I'll not be able to do that. I would never want to ruin someone's surprise. This is a little lighter in the front. That little hair is going to drive me crazy. See? Got to take good care of your brushes, right? These are good brushes too. These are the rosemary. And the highlight on that pot is actually kind of cool. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. And don't assume this is done. This is sure not done. We're just kind of blocking in. Okay, so let's move on to the copper pot. And this is very dark on this edge. One thing I did miss, I can see, is the little spout. Trying to keep things loose too. Like I said, I don't want to get too picky about anything. This edge is pretty much lost back here too on this copper pot. And over here. Very dark on the edge. As I look inside it, pretty dark in there too. I can see a few areas that look a little more orange. They tell you to squint for value and open up your eyes for color. Value, I know, can be difficult to learn for a lot of people, but you really need to get an understanding of it to be a good artist. I know if you're starting out, people tell you things that just go right over your head. It takes a while to learn the language of art, I think, and to know what people are talking about. First workshop I took was that way, you know. I can't say I understood a lot of what he was talking about. I'm going to mix up some more orange here because I'm dipping into that and mixing it with other things to get what I need. Okay, as we move around the front of this pot, it gets lighter. I'm just going to fill that in for now because it's, even though I think I see, well, it doesn't matter what I see, does it? It's dark back in there. We're going to make it dark. I was going to say I think I might see some of that fabric in there, but it's not going to matter. We'll go ahead and get things covered up a little bit better too. Again, as I move toward the center of this copper pot back here, it gets more orange and lighter. And there are a few nice highlights on it. Will be fun to put in. Stupid brush. I gotta decide what I'm doing. Want to clip that off or not? It's fighting me. Maybe we'll switch off to a different one. A little bit smaller. Another rosemary. Again, as I get toward the front, it's more orange. Ooh, way too intense. Okay. It doesn't hurt to do some mixing on the canvas too. I don't know if you ever do that or not. See, I'm really tempted to pull that out. I'm really feeling like, see, if that wasn't there, we'd see the back of the plate. And maybe almost the bottom of the pot. I'll decide later. We'll just keep moving on. And actually, I've got the light off to the left, way high, shooting down this way. But this over here is pretty light. So we'll paint it that way. We'll see how it reads. And then we've got this handle, which I can see some of. There's another handle back in here. I can see the side of it mostly, and the back of it. We'll just put it in there for now. That would actually be way too close. Yeah, it's a completely lost edge there. Making that edge darker again, like it looks. Darker down in there. Okay, now the fabric, even though it's white, like all through here is darker and there's some shadows, and the shadow over here, I don't even know what that's a shadow of. I think it's the plate, but it's darker here and lighter out in here. It's a different way to paint, you know, rather than just painting the objects. Usually I would just be painting the objects. Now I'm trying to paint objects that you can't see the whole thing, which is kind of different and interesting. Suggesting that. Let's mix up some dirty white. We'll just use all the primaries. blue, some yellow, some red. And it's cooler back in there, so let's keep it on the cool side. And we'll get some of that, the darker areas in of the white, and then maybe use that for shadows and then bring it out into the light. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. Looks darker than the background, so let's put a little white in it. More of a gray color. Just trying to paint what I see. This is where it comes down over the table. Fabric goes up into there. We'll see if this works. And all down in here, but where it goes over the table, you know, I'm going to want that to all be darker. And this in here, this part of the fabric is nicely lit. A warmer white. We'll take some white and we'll take some yellow. But I'm going to take a little bit of that same gray color that I used for the background so it works with the shadowed area. And let's see how that works. Obviously try to create some folds to make it more interesting, but we'll see if it makes sense or not. Anything can come and go at any moment. I try not to jump and do that too quickly though. I mean, because it's hard to judge. You can be partway through a painting and think, man, this is just not going to work. I mean, we all have those doubts, and if you try to resist wiping it off, sometimes you can, you know, you'll find that you really like it when it's all said and done. You know, I felt that way about the boots last time. You know, you're working along there and think, what a mess. Don't even look like boots. But I like them now, so there you go. Got a lot of nice feedback on the boots on Facebook. It was really nice. You just never know with painting what you're going to do that's going to feel successful, and it's hard. Okay, and down in here, this seems to all feel a little confusing right now, doesn't it? And down in here, I want it to feel like it drapes over the table. So I don't want it quite as light as what's on top of the table there. Kind of go somewhere in between. Around at things here. I'm not sure if that works or not. That a little confusing, so we're gonna lighten it up. Okay, over in here I've got it's actually the cardboard box, which is more of a yellow color and fairly light. So let's just try that and see. You know, we may not even need that at all, but we'll try it. See how it feels when it's all done. All right, so we're blocked in. Let's look at it and see how things look to us. I think the copper pot feels a little wide, so I'm going to bring it in. And I may even have it a little longer, taller than it is actually. So we're going to bring it in. Okay. Actually, I'm getting a little bit of light through here, so. And you know, things just happen sometimes that aren't planned, which you know that if you paint, you lay down a color and it intermixes with the color maybe that's on there, and you end up with a, you know, a cool purple or something, and you leave it because it just works. So. All right, let's start analyzing things here. You know, here's this melon. Do we want this melon? I'm just a little concerned that this is going to feel too small without this piece back here. Maybe I'll let you help me decide. I'm going to turn around and look at it. I'm going to move up here. And I'll just try some things. If I turn it upright and I have two pieces more like that, what do I think of that? Or lay it on its face, maybe. I don't know if I like that either. You know, I'm really torn what to do. Let's take it off. See, I'm just afraid it's going to look dinky by itself. What do we think of that? Maybe. Let's try that for now. Bear with me there. Let me swing you back around. Okay, so we're going to wipe this out. Get rid of some of that paint. I was looking for my stylus here. Can't find it. Okay, we'll just take the back of a brush and we'll sketch in the new shape. It hits about right there on that one, and it actually and I can see the inside of it. It's about right there. All right, we're going to try that way and see how that feels to us. I did wait till I got paint everywhere to make that decision, and I still felt it was a little confusing. So we'll go back to some of that pure orange color, and we'll lighten it up. I can see some of the inside of the one behind, so it's a little darker and cooler. And then there's a shadow under it too, so. And this is a cooler color. I did that to pull it behind it, so we'll see if that works or not. like I say, it's all trial and error. I mean, I've started them. I try not to give up too soon, but I obviously have wiped, you know, a lot of them off over the years. Sometimes you're not feeling it, you know. Or I've, like in this case, taken elements of it out. I've got a still life sitting over there right now that I set up, and I had this pipe box in the background, and I just didn't like it. I wiped it out, so it's sitting over there right now, and I'll have to set it back up and put something different in it. I've got something in mind. Okay, I lost that shadow. What we're going to do is repaint the background again, go back to our really dark. Now, as I look back in there, is it completely dark everywhere? Let me think about that too. Actually, I think I'm catching a little, even though it's got to stay almost as dark as this, I'm catching a little bit of a orange light back in there. I'll show you, see if you can see it or not. See back in there, we're catching probably something off the copper pot in the background. You can see it, I think. So let's put some of that in. I want to keep it dark. I don't have to change it if I don't get dark enough. But it's kind of right in there. Okay, I'm defining that handle now. And inside that handle I can see, I can't see much of this part of the handle though. I received the DVD I ordered yesterday by Chuck Marshall. I was telling you about him last time. Very good, very good. Lots of good information in it. It's through Lily Dale. know Chuck personally, and I've taken some workshops from him, but even with all that, I picked up some things that I hadn't heard before. So this edge over here is pretty dark. Okay, now let's think about, do I see this handle as well as I think I do? So I need to kick it back. Again, I can't see much of the lid looking back in there. Very dark. I'm just going to lose that edge because I can't really see it. Whoa, too intense, isn't it? Didn't mean to catch that yellow like that. I was trying to kick it up a little bit. Got my brush into something I didn't mean to get it into there. Yeah, it's too bright yet. Squint and look. I really can't see much of this back in there. If we're talking value. I can see that side better than the other one. And I got that blue highlight there, which is nice. I can see that on there. I can see a little bit of a highlight there. A little bit on the spout. And the spout really only goes to about there. See, we got a lot of unexplained, undefined edges, which is fine because we really can't see them back in there. So. Trying to kick them back if I don't see them. gotta admit, my eyes are not what they should be right now. I'm going to have cataract surgery in December. I had one eye done a couple years ago, so vision's not quite what it should be right now, so you might be seeing more than I am if you were here. Kind of introducing that warm color that we saw. Remember I showed you in the back there? All right, let's look at this big guy again. I really can't see the center of that handle, so let's not put it in. I can see that, however. And the detail's kind of fun. And I can see back in here where it hits the pot. Okay, back in here. I've kind of got it already. There's some subtle shift in value. Say that a lot, don't I? Okay. It's like you set out to complete a task and it's finished, so. I actually have put up paintings to look at after I, to critique them myself, and then I have made a list of things I want to go in and correct. That can be helpful, like a checklist of things you need to do. Looking to see what I see back there. Like I say, actually I'm catching some pretty, I got a highlight back here which is kind of nice. But I think it should be more orange now that I got it in, so let's do it again. Kind of fun that we're catching that. That's the brightest thing on that pot. And you come around here, got a little bit of something, not as vibrant, and then there's the other handle goes up this way, and there's a highlight there. Kind of goes off that way, and that's too bright, but I'm just kind of putting it in so I can see where it should be. Okay, so let's look at this. And this is more red too than I have it. Lighter in there. know, it's a bit lighter right in there. I'm not so sure we're not picking up some of the reflection. Maybe not of the cantaloupe, but maybe not. Probably not. The juiciest color would be around this side. Doing a little detail on this. Not the whole thing though, because see this strip of light I think would be distracting, so we're going to muddy it up. Now let's see if we can, this right now is drawing my eye, which I mean is okay too. I'm going to put the highlights on the plate and maybe a little more of a cleaner blue. So we can get your eye maybe back here. There's a few highlights on the plate. Get my little liner brush back out. All right, from where I'm sitting, there's one here. One here and here. Mixing up a little more of my melon color. Make this a little juicier. some texture in that melon. I think I'm going to, I'm looking at the shapes of things. I feel as though this is a little too round looking. Looking at the shape of things here. Been at an hour and 20 minutes, which is about my norm. Don't want to get too picky, but I do want that to feel right, so. Still having some issues, I think, with the shape of this pot. I'm trying to figure out what it is. I think what it is it goes back up into there more than I have it. Yeah. All right, let's see if there's anything else. I think we'll do a little more of a shadow here. I do see it. Put some of that purple in the background. Why not? It's a dark value, so. Alrighty, we're about to call it. Let me darken this down in here a little bit. Haven't really taken time to step back and see how things really read. fabrics back in there too, I'm not sure. All right, just almost there. One more thing here, and then we'll take a look at it here. Kind of feel as though I made a bit of a lip on this plate. All right, looking at it. You know, maybe a few more places that I'm catching a little more light than I have, you know. Maybe back in there. Definitely on the spout. Down here. Here. That's kind of fun, isn't it? The bottom of this is a little lighter than the top. I keep saying one last thing. Mixing up a darker green. I feel as though this has a darker edge on it than I have. Got a bunch of this thick paint, so why not put it in here where the light's hitting this tablecloth, right? All right. I think I'll stop there. As soon as I turn the camera off, I'll probably play with it a little bit. So again, like and subscribe. Check below. You'll find my link to my website if you want to look at more of my work. Find me on Facebook, Barbara Pask Fine Art. And if I do, you know, tweak this a little, which I usually do, you know how it is. If you paint, you can see the finished painting on there. But I probably won't change it a lot. I see a few little things as I look around. I'll stand up and I'll show you the painting and I'll show you the setup again. Let me get you back far enough you can see the whole thing. That's straight on. A little bit heavier paint There's some texture there in the cantaloupe, and so, you know, it may require me going over the background again to clean it up. We'll see. Do have some lost edges, maybe not enough. I'll show you the setup again. Let me crank you down. That's the setup. You know, the longer you stare into there, I think the more you see. But there you go. It's been an hour and a half. So I'll look at it and see what I think, and maybe, like I said, develop it a little more. So find me on Facebook, and you can see the finished painting. Thanks for joining me again. Bye-bye.